Hi everyone, so Donnie with Big D's Bows. We're going to start building a handle. So I did skip the process of stabilizing the wood, but I'll show you two pieces that are about to get cooked and explain that. So I have buckeye burl that's stabilized, that's got to go in the oven to actually cure it, and then I have some burl maple. These will be getting built. And then like this piece will be going in. And it's pretty straightforward. I cut them to, like, this is going to be a veneer, so I need it longer. And I have a big tube, 4-inch PVC. It's easy. Fill it up, put the stabilizer. In my case, I use cactus juice. Pretty easy to get. And then put it in there, vacuum it down. I like to vacuum in a little bit of stages. I don't just hit it and go. I'll put it on full vacuum, wait for a little while, and then I'll open it, let some of that seep in it, make sure it's still under the actual level, add some if I need, turn it back on. I'll do that a few times. The denser the wood, the longer you got to leave it in. So you need that stabilizer to soak in and penetrate all the way through. So, and then on cooking them, you know, when you're putting it in the oven, make sure you leave it in there long enough so it heats the whole wood through and cures it. Because if you just say flash to it, like say 250 for like 20 minutes, you might get the outside dry, inside's still going to be wet. So you need to leave it in there long enough. Varies on how the wood density and stuff like that. Like this will probably cook a lot faster than say oak or something. It's not gonna cook and cure as quick. So, all right, show you some things about making the molds. So the handle I'm making is for a Sadie stick, which is a heavy reflex deflex bow. So when you're making the molds, you know, this is literally just copied straight out of the bow. So my mold for the bow, this is it right there. So when you're making these, make them as flat as you can. I send it through my drum sander over there to get them all flat. And then I literally trace this out. I cut it off, then I grind it off a little bit, and I go back and forth till it's perfect. And then I put my flat piece on there. Go a little bit longer. Don't go like, if your handle's 14 inches, don't go dead on 14. You need that little extra so to get a really good, smooth, crisp line at the end. But what else can I say? Make sure you put arrows. I got an arrow this way, I got an arrow on my mold, so everything has an arrow. So every time I build something, arrow goes one way. So I'll show that on, it flips, literally. The handle will flip when I do the other side of the handle. This is the back side, and then the belly side, my handle flips. But I have arrows, so I know which way it goes. And then have center marks. Always have center marks. Sometimes you gotta go in there and read them with pencil, but keep your center marks, because if you're not center, it's going to be a hard bow to get right. So here's the belly piece, and see the arrow points this way. Well, it's pointing that way. So when I do that and then I flip the handle, it's going to change it for me. That's how it goes on mine, but it's still the same process. Goes through the belt center, everything gets square. Take your time building this. Make sure you start out with a decent wood. Don't go with like pine, it's going to eat it. I mean, to get kind of rough, you need to use pine, but otherwise go to a denser wood so you can get these exactly where you want them. You can measure from your center point out to the ends, make sure they're center, unless you're doing a non-symmetrical bow. But take your time on these. If you take your time on these, it will save you in the end. If you just rush through it, well, you may have one side of your handle that's, we'll say 6.5 inches, and your other side might be 7 from center. Well, that's going to throw your tiller off and everything else, and it's a big headache. So take your time doing this step. I do have some of these I got to build later, so that's something I can do later on. So my handles always have a center mark, especially when I'm cutting these, because I'm wanting them to come centered. That way everything lines up, gets good crisp lines. So I have my arrows. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's an arrow there, but I have one on this side too. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down with the arrow facing the right way. I'm going to trace it out. Don't use a carpenter pencil here, because you want to get kind of close, so when you cut the line out, it's fairly close, not as much sanded. So and all I did was I just clamped it in Sorry, I don't have a phone holder, but I just clamped it in, but you can see my line right there. I got one there too. It's all straight, so I'm just gonna trace that one, because that is literally where the sandpaper is gonna run. So I do not have like a bearing sander, so I'm doing it more on cheap side. I use this, I run the belt up high. Just make sure you keep an eye on the belt. You don't want it coming down, because then it'll eat your mold. Then you gotta start over. Yep, yes, I've done it. So, all right, so I'm gonna cut this piece out. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video. That way you don't have to listen to that part. And then I'll come back and I'll probably do the sanding on video. That way y'all can see it. But I mean, you can see you can see the line that I traced. So that's where I'm just gonna cut right through there. So I'm gonna have just a little bit of purple on the front. I'm gonna have the black and white there, and then I'm gonna have some in the rear of the handle. Some's gonna disappear with sanding and cutting the shelf, but it'll still look good. Okay, so I did my rough shape. Now it's back on center still. So I'm gonna turn the camera. We're gonna hit it with a sander. Sorry I don't have a good angle for you, but let me turn on the vacuum and then I'll do this piece and I'll show you how smooth it comes out. Remember to check your belt height to your mold with it on. Okay, so now we got a nice line. This will fit perfectly in my mold sitting like that. Arrows lined up to arrows on the mold. If I flip it, my handle may not be perfectly the same that way. That's the reason for all these arrows too. So my arrows on this mold face this way. So I'm gonna find my arrows right here facing that way, facing that way. So I'm gonna put it in facing this way because that's the way it lines. So once I put it in there, I always clamp them because I'm not going to trace it without a clamp, because I need that clamp just to make sure everything lines up. So now I'm going to trace it again with a pencil and then cut it out. So cut these. I use an aggressive teeth because I'm going through the G10. You can get a gusseted diamond blade, but they're expensive. And if you're cutting just G10, they're phenomenal. Well, when you start adding wood in it, it goes pretty quick. So I've learned that too. So I just get a cheaper, heavy aggressive teeth, like this one I think is 3 per inch, just to rip through this. But I stay on the outside of my line so I can go to the sander and so I'll be using a different side of the sander on this end piece. Okay, somewhere in there my phone ran out of storage. I had to delete stuff, pictures from bows and stuff like that. So, hope y'all laughed at all the little bloopers that are going to be in this, but the handle's cut out. So now I'm going to trace it on the mold, but this time I'm going to use the end of it. I'm still going to lift the sandpaper up, but I cannot afford a bearing roller sander, so I'm going to use that. It works the same. As long as the table you build on the end is square to the machine. Everything's square, you're good to go. So let's get to it. So if you do it right, you'll have nice clean feathers here and here, and your handle will fit perfectly in your mold. So I hope this helps you kind of see how to do the handles. Have a blessed day.